Okay, I know it's a stretch, but hang on in there. I'll give you a summary of the plot of Eromanga Sensei for those of you who haven't watched it, and it'll be a refresher for those of you who have watched it a couple of years ago. After that, I'm going to complain about this anime, and it's on that foundation I'm going to build up this idea about how this anime actually highlights this Christian doctrine of being made in the image of God. This anime is about this guy and his little stepsister, and things are totally normal between them. So main character is a first-year high school student, but also works part-time as a light novel author. The main reason being that after their parents remarried, they unfortunately got involved in this accident, which has left the step-siblings together, but without parents. After that, stepsister becomes a shut-in, never escaping her room, while main character continues and tries to live a normal life. Okay, so we find out that main character is really good at writing to the point that he is essentially a micro-celebrity due to all of the light novels that he's released. Now, he does have a business partner who he's never met, Eromanga Sensei. Hey, they said the name of the show, and they're the ones who draw all of the covers for his light novels, and I definitely can't show that on YouTube. Now, you'll notice that the pen name Eromanga is a conjugation of erotic and manga, which just further goes to show how garbage this anime is. And you, dear viewer, may be wondering this far into the video why I even decided to cover this show in the first place, and why it deserves a dedicated video on the channel. I talk a lot about the meta-narrative that we're trying to tell here on this channel. We talk a lot about Christian anime, but we also have to be honest about anime such as Eromanga Sensei, because these are anime which break the meta-narrative. I think it's still important to show the ways which Japanese culture has failed here, in so much that it has created a culture in which these ideas and themes are somewhat socially acceptable to the point that this anime was even greenlit in the first place. Yet, in the imperfections of Japanese society, I still somehow see God working in all of this, and while I wouldn't recommend you to watch this garbage as I have for this video, I am going to connect this idea of being made in the image of God to these characters in this anime who are creating erotic art. So do stay with me, alright? We are met in the first episode with main character who is really wanting to still talk to his little stepsister who's holed up in her bedroom, but he also wants to meet the artist who does all of the drawings for his light novels. So he attempts to find out more about his business partner first. He goes onto a live stream where they're drawing some spicy art, which I definitely can't show on YouTube, and isn't that interesting? That room looks like his stepsister's room. So then main character runs to his little sister's room demanding an explanation, and little sister is like, oh, that name, I don't recognize it, I'm totally not Eromanga Sensei. And main character is like, well, I'm actually the author who writes that series you draw stuff for. As a result of this exchange, for the first time in a year of not seeing her, main character enters his little sister's room, and they just try to reconcile that for this whole year they've basically not talked to each other at all, but they've been working together this whole time. Then main character is like, I'm sorry I paid you to draw all of those lewd drawings for my light novel. And little stepsister is like, baka, pervert, haha audience, look at funny joke that is being attempted to be made here. And these are just the beginnings of the problems with Eromanga Sensei, which come to the core of this anime. I feel as if I'm not being unreasonable to say that this anime is genuinely evil because of the manner in which it depicts minors. And I'm aware of this continuing to happen in later episodes, and I hate that this anime acts as if this is just industry standard and perfectly normal for a young girl to be doing this thing where she's drawing lewd art. Not to mention the fact that the jokes which are being made in this anime are also not that funny and just rely on you finding this novel situation between the two main characters as humorous. And as the first episode just drags on and on, it just feels like this anime is trying to be garbage on purpose for the sake of shock value. So what ought to be the Christian response to this? Of course, other than to absolutely denounce everything about Eromanga Sensei. Now, I'm stealing this idea from David Wood, who talks about this concept. His thesis is that humanity has the capacity to do so much good, to mirror our creator, yet also has the capacity to reject our creator and be so incredibly evil. Our purpose as human beings is to image God, in David Wood's words, to make the invisible God visible. And in my opinion, the primary behavior for which we actually mirror God is through us mirroring our love. For God sacrifices himself and dies on the cross for our sins, then when we sacrificially impart love upon our fellow man as God has done for us, we are imaging God in that sense. Though it's not only our purpose, us being in line with our purpose, for which we image God, but David talks about the different ways that our structure, the human structure, the thing about us that is needed in order to fulfill our purpose, also images God. Wood gives all of these examples, such as our moral faculties, our ability to reason, our abilities to love and to think, our ability to plan and to be creative. So all of these things which make up the human structure also image God. Yet being in the image of God, we have been corrupted by sin. Yet we have all of these different abilities. Yet we see in Eromanga Sensei that main character has this ability to write stories and capture people's imaginations. Yet little stepsister has the ability to draw and to create for the people around her. These two use what make them images of God, their creative abilities. They use their abilities to create something evil. I haven't watched some of the later episodes where it goes completely insane. I've seen bits and pieces here and there from watching reviews on this anime, but again, we see broken people and then them trying to deal with this concept of sex. God has given us this beautiful gift of intimacy for which one man and one woman are able to come together in this union which binds flesh, for two human beings to take up this partnership and journey with one another in. For this act not only to be pleasurable for oneself, but for that pleasure to be given to another person, but also to be able to produce children, and for family to be able to arise from that. This level of intimacy for which Christ has for his church is then mirrored and imaged in marriage. Yet we see in this anime that there is a misuse of that. Instead of keeping what is meant to be intimate and protected and kept within this union of marriage, we see in Eromanga Sensei the abuse of that. Yet the characters of this anime are still made in the image of God. So how do we fix this? How do we as Christians solve this problem of humans using their abilities which are meant to be imaging God, but using them to instead degrade that image? The answer is to look to Jesus, who then takes that burden for us, who has perfectly imaged God in the life he lived, and in looking to Jesus, he continually renews the Christian day by day in order for us to align our function better in imaging God. Now, of course, you didn't need to watch this anime in order to come to this conclusion. Even for me, I thought it'd be a funny video idea for a Christian to review Eromanga Sensei. Yet while watching this anime, I genuinely wanted to krill myself because of the vast levels of degeneracy for which I've seen, and I felt convicted that perhaps that's not the direction that this video should take, that instead I ought to make this negative experience of mine instead a positive for you guys to then actually be able to take something away from. In the words of David Wood, who ends his video by talking about evil people, while still being evil people still image God. Evil people may be imaging God in a defective way, but they are still imaging God nonetheless. As little stepsister sins in trying to invoke lust through the drawings that she's created, she still images God in her creative faculties and the capacity to create. Don't get me wrong, sin is still bad, and punishment is rightly imparted upon unrepentant sinners, but even as someone sins, God is ultimately glorified as sinners still image God. How amazing is it that God is still glorified despite the existence of sin? I'll link David Wood's video on here if you want to continue exploring this idea, and he explains it way better than I'm doing it right now. Though if you do want to watch anime which are actually uplifting, then I recommend this video on my top 10 Christian anime recommendations.